Okay, here we go. Episode 1, pilot episode of Plum Bums podcast, sponsored by Cordts Plumbing. I'm Phil. I'm here with Max.
Hi.
Introduce yourself, Max.
Okay. I'm Max.
We also got Frankie in the bed. We usually ride around with two
Just
dogs.
Clarify that. Frankie in the bed. We're not in bed doing the podcast. And the dog is not in the bed with us.
So Frankie is a pug, and she's in a dog bed. We are sitting in chairs separately across the table from each other. But so we're here with Plum Bums podcast. We actually talked about doing this for quite some time, just to kind of have a perspective from the trades, because nobody gets that. Nobody gets the perspective from tradesmen. And I don't think that's fair. I think people need to know what it's like running a small business.
Work.
Well, that would be the point of our YouTube channel, to show that, but no one's really watching that anyway.
We're basically coal miners.
But so we kind of started this thing to talk about what it's like running a small business, what we see in the field, how to build your brand. And I'm going to start this off right now by saying we are in no way
experts
at any of this.
Not even at plumbing.
Yeah. So
don't call us.
Don't call us. We have no idea what we're doing. We actually, every time you call us, we just sub it out to another plumbing company. But so we kind of put this thing together where we can put everything into perspective, and we're trying to figure out which direction we're going to put this. But I'm going to assume that this may go toward other business owners. Business owners starting out. So we'll give a little background of Cordts Plumbing. My grandfather started this business in 1961. He used to work in the city as a union plumber for a couple of years, and then branched off and opened his own business in River Edge, New Jersey, 1961. And we still have the same phone number as we did when we opened, which I think is pretty cool. Which means we never closed down, amazingly, after all those years through recessions and whatever else it is. But my grandfather had a heart attack in the early 90s, and my Uncle Paul took it over then. And my Uncle Paul had a contracting business, a construction business, and he didn't know anything about plumbing. So he had to do a crash course in plumbing. He taught himself while my grandfather was recovering from a heart attack.
How long did it take them to do their first water heater?
So the story I got, the first water heater my uncle ever did was with my father, and my father does not like to get his hands dirty. He's not a blue collar type of guy. So I've
met the man. He's got soft hands.
He's got very soft hands.
Very, very soft.
Very soft hands. Very just, they're not blue collar hands, which is fine, to each his own. But my uncle took my father on his first water heater job, and it took them 9 hours. And for those of you who don't know what it takes to put in a water heater, it's what? 3 piping connections?
Frankie could put it in.
4 piping connections, including the vent?
Yeah.
So they're down there struggling, trying to figure this out. And the lady, she's like 80 years old upstairs, like at the top of the stairs, like, is everything all right down there? Like all she wants to do is take a bath. So it took him a long time to kind of get accustomed to the business, to take over, to like bail my grandfather out from his heart attack. My grandfather eventually got a little bit better, but ended up needing a heart transplant. So my uncle took it over permanently. And when my grandfather came back, he didn't do any crazy stuff. It just fully went into my uncle's hands. And then,
which is amazing, like at what he built it into, and how much he actually taught himself. If his first job took him 9 hours to do a water heater, then like we call him for all of our questions that we have on very experienced plumbing, questions that we have, and he knows it. He knows it right away. So for him to have taught himself all that stuff is without somebody really teaching him. I mean, he's got a contracting background, but it's just impressive.
There is an aspect to someone who's mechanically inclined that you can pick this business up. Like, you're mechanically inclined. You were going to go to school for electrical or vehicle repair.
For my father, I was gonna go to school to fix vehicles. Yeah, but then I was also looking. I don't know if you remember when I called you, looking for an electrician.
Yeah, I was going to give you to Tom.
Yeah, and then I ended up with you.
And then and that was what,
poop.
5 years ago, poop pipes?
Yeah, 5-6 years ago.
And here we are. So we've been kind of just not so much teaching ourselves. We have had a lot of help.
A lot.
Like I call Paul a lot. I call other plumbers a lot. We talk to the supply house. The supply house takes care of us very well.
Yeah, because it's an ever-changing trade that everything is always advancing. I mean, just like everything else, but I think with plumbing too, that because everything stays the same, but it changes very drastically, like the materials and new ways to heat homes and new ways to, get faster hot water and all this kind of stuff. So
I think, what was I going to say? I forget. Anyway, it's probably not that important. But as far as taking this over, by the time I took it over, Paul was done. He just was over it. And he had got out at 2008, had hit Cordts Plumbing really hard. And I really think he kind of lost a lot of motivation from that.
He had how many trucks before 08?
We had 4, I think. 4 trucks on the road.
And how many guys?
I think there were 5 to 6 guys, and then 08 hit, and then it was just him. And then he took a helper here and there. One of his helpers screwed him over really bad. But then he was just a one-man operation. And to be honest, I don't know how you do plumbing as a one-man operation. We know lots of guys who do one-man operations. I don't know how. You're just on the job forever. You're just surviving.
That's what happens when you're doing a one man. You're surviving. You're not thriving, and that's not the point of this. This podcast is to make to teach people how to do more than survive in this business. And
that's the problem, because a lot of guys will get out of the trades, or they'll get into the trades with they're great mechanics, but they have no idea how to run a business.
Yeah, you don't have to be great at this job. You have to be good at it. You have to treat people well, treat people fairly, and you have to be well-rounded, business savvy too.
I think that's what's definitely lacking, because we're kind of in continuing education over at the trade school. Yeah, and there's a lot of guys in there. A lot of smart guys coming up into the field. Into the industry, but there's not a lot of business savvy, and I'm not business savvy. I taught myself everything. We've taught each other a lot of things just by trial and error. So what the problem is this industry's having is you have a whole array of guys who are undercharging because they're not charging properly. So they think they're charging okay, they're undercharging. And then when a quality company comes in that wants to pay their guys right, the door's shut in their face because, oh, you're too expensive. You're charging us too much. You're gouging us. You're doing this and that. It's like, first of all, that's not the goal of us to be in the field, is to gouge the customer. If we're gouging the customer, we would be closed. So the goal that we're trying to achieve is have good technicians who look at our company and say, you know what, my company takes care of me. They know my worth. They pay me a decent wage. We don't want to always be scraping for money. We don't want to, like, if we need a new truck or even just a truck repair, we don't want to have to panic to repair the truck and get stuck without the proper tools or all that stuff. So we're trying to keep it moving forward, keeping good employees. You obviously want to keep the good employees with you. You don't want them to go somewhere else where they're going to get paid more. So I think the more guys discuss their numbers with each other and start putting their numbers into perspective for each other, the whole industry, even if it's just small pockets of like suburbs like our area, Bergen County, I think that'll start to spread through the industry, and it'll send a message to, listen, plumbing is an important trade, and you can't just fly by night everything. So that's kind of the point. That's why we're here today. And that's why we kind of took on this endeavor to do a podcast and just talk and kind of BS. And like I said, we are not experts. We are learning this, going through trial and error, a lot of things. But there is stuff
Is there snoring coming through?
No, I can't. So we have Frankie. So obviously, people who know our business, we have a pug that rides around with us in the truck, and Max brings his little poodle mix dog. But a pug is basically every canine genetic deformity rolled into a wrinkly croissant body. And
it's a plumber's dog.
It's
what it is.
Definitely a plumber's dog.
We send her through the pipes.
She's actually a great companion on the field, and customers love her. So you know what? We're going to utilize her and brand her with the business. If you can't exploit your pets, who can you exploit? So that's basically where we're at. So we want to kind of focus everything that's going out in the field and just talk about it once a week, twice a week, whatever it is. So we got Max on the computer. He's just going to kind of browse through stuff, and we're just basically going to talk about different things. And I threw up a couple tabs up at the top if you want to scroll through them.
Yeah.
But that's pretty much how Cordts Plumbing started. It started back in 1961 with my grandfather, and they had 7 children. Completely different world back then, obviously. He bought his first house in River Edge, which my uncle still lives in. What were they paying? So they were paying rent in Jersey City back in 1960. $75 a month was their rent.
Now Jersey City is the most expensive. It just surpassed New York for the highest rent in the country.
Absolutely, and it's so yuppie over there. I mean, when was the last time you were over at Jersey City?
Jersey City, probably like 2 years ago, and it was just starting to get. Not just starting, but it was up and coming. As everybody likes to say.
I like Jersey City. I was there maybe a year ago. I do like the city, but the price to live there. No,
I don't like any cities.
I mean,
I like the country.
That is the ultimate goal, to have no neighbors. But so they were paying $75 a month, and then somebody had mentioned to my grandfather, he's like, "What are you doing paying rent? Go buy a house for $100." And River Edge was 15 years old at the time. All those houses shot up right after the war, and they found that house on Continental for $100 a month. That was his mortgage.
Yep.
$100 a month. My grandmother didn't work. They had 7 children living in Bergen County, and my grandmother didn't work, and they raised kids like that,
and
which is absolutely insane.
And was clothed, went to school, everything.
I mean, listen, they didn't have the best stuff, but they had.
Who needs the best stuff?
There was one time I remember this story my dad told me. So, I mean, listen, they had a rough upbringing. Growing up was not easy for my family, but my dad told me one year that for Christmas, my grandfather bought every kid a bike kit. And he went to buy the bikes, and they come disassembled. So you have to take the bike home and you assemble the whole thing. And he spent all Christmas Eve downstairs assembling every single bike for all 7 kids. And my grandmother she remembers it well, because she was sitting around. She didn't help him at all, but she was sitting around in the kitchen watching him get so frustrated putting these bikes together. But my dad remembers waking up, and there were just 7 bikes sitting all in a row under the Christmas tree one morning. And it was mind blowing to walk down and see that. And my grandfather didn't even wake up for Christmas morning. He was exhausted.
Here's your bikes. Now leave me alone.
Yeah, now I'm going back to bed. But times are totally different. And if you're going to survive in this time, we talk about it all the time, you have to know your numbers. How do you even figure out your numbers? So this was one of the things that we had to walk through, and we kind of got help through this program called Numbers Crunchers. And I think I showed you that program once.
Yeah, we went back and forth between them and House Call.
Well, yeah, House Call is our dispatching program, which is actually, if you guys need a dispatching program, House Call is a phenomenal app. So we started House Call 5-6 years ago, and that app was pretty new, and they've added so many features where they pretty much have everything. But Numbers Crunchers specifically will have you lay out all your expenses, exactly what you need to pay every month, and it'll break down what you should be charging per hour, per day, what you should be bringing in per week, and it'll tell you exactly what you're worth And when you talk to a company, when you say, "Oh, what do you charge an hour?" and they're like, "Oh, $95, $105," it's clear that they haven't done their numbers, because you can't run a lucrative business in this area charging $150. It's just not going to happen. So what we started to gear towards was a flat rate system where you can kind of protect the customer from overpaying. So if you give the customer a flat rate, you charge them a flat rate for the job. And if you go over, the customer's not on the hook for that. You charge them a flat rate, you win some, you lose some. Yeah. But generally, you're going to maintain your numbers and maintain a profit if you're doing that flat rate system. So, that's kind of how we have been running our invoices lately, which is a flat rate system. And it's been working out really well. What we do is we walk into a house. If it's a new customer, we'll walk in, and there's well dressed. Yep. We'll get to that. We'll actually get to uniforms. Maybe not this episode, but the next one. But we walk into a house, and there's a whole checklist that Numbers Crunchers gives you to kind of focus on. What is the first line? It says, when you meet the customer, say something like, "Oh, your grass is so green," or something like that.
Make a personal connection.
Make a personal connection, which is,
it's corny, cheesy, but
right.
You do it.
Here's the problem. Some guys you need to tell that to. Yeah. Like if you're training a plumber who has been, like, if you're training some schmuck who's been doing his one-man operation, and I'm not dumping on guys who are a one-man operation. That's a lot of work. I give them a lot of props, but they're in their habits. If you're going to train a guy to do that, you have to literally say, "Listen, when you first meet the customer, make a personal connection." But you walk in, we look at everything. So let's say they call us for a faucet, okay? They call us for a faucet. We look at the faucet, but we're going to say, "Listen, we're here. Let's look at a whole bunch of stuff. Let's look at your water heater. Let's see how your boiler's doing. Do you like your bathroom faucet upstairs? Do you ever get sewer clogs?" which is something that you look at if they have a house trap. So if we're going to go into a house, we're going to take the time to look at everything. So the way we do our proposals, we will take a look at everything that customer has, and we'll break it down to 6 different options. So your lowest option that we give the customer is exactly what they called us for. So that first option will be the faucet replacement. The next option up will be faucet replacement plus changing your P-trap and your sink basket and updating the valves underneath. The third option would be including a sump pump in there. So you give the customer an option to choose exactly what they want. So they can choose what's in their budget. Everything's guaranteed. The higher option you go, the better warranty you get. And this has actually been working out in the field because the customer knows exactly what they're getting. They know what they're buying. They have choices. And they're locked in to an excellent warranty. When you're going with a top option from us, you're getting a 5-year warranty. And I don't know of any other plumbing company that's giving a 5-year warranty, especially with the garbage that's coming out of the supply chains right now. Yeah. Because everything breaks down. Water heaters used to last, 20, 30 years? Now you're lucky if you get 10 years. We changed out that water heater, not the one we just did, but the one, I think you were gone, but I did a 40-gallon. It was like 7.5 years old. Done. Yeah. Done. At 7 years old, water heater, done. And that's a problem, and it's just going to get worse. It's not getting better. Definitely not getting better. So we're trying to offset the fact that manufacturing sucks with giving a better warranty and kind of taking a hit ourselves. So I don't know. You got anything to say about that with manufacturing or anything? I'm sure you have a lot of opinions. I know you have a lot of opinions.
I have a lot of opinions on manufacturing. Listen, with my father's in the car business, I just kind of bring everything back to that. And that's where I take most of my experience from. We used to sell used cars with high miles, and he goes, cars used to just last. Cars is actually not a great example in this one because cars now last a lot longer, 200,000, 300,000 miles versus when he you know, in the 80s when he said, you know, people had their car for 50, 60, 100,000 miles and that was it. They just tossed it.
Really?
Yeah. But cars, like, he goes, American cars were the best at that point. Now everything is made overseas and it's made like garbage.
But you're still getting 200,000 miles out of the Toyota.
You know, on the Toyota that's made in Japan. I mean, it's made in a country that they're like...
That they care about the manufacturing.
They care about every little aspect of the manufacturing, the quality. I mean, look, Japanese toilets, Japanese products that we use are better.
Yeah, that is true.
You know? When you buy American products over here, they're slightly better, but then when you see made in China, you know that the product is usually going to be garbage. And you just kind of have to deal with it. So that's why the warranty is really nice. But on top of the warranty, when you go with the top option for us, you get priority status.
Right.
You know, so we're
exactly.
there for you.
That is also another selling point that we kind of have to do, because when a product fails, the plumber's not manufacturing it, but we get blamed for it.
Yeah.
And which is understandable. We put the product in.
Yep.
You know, and the customer's going to take their frustration out on the guy who put it in. So even though it's not necessarily our fault that things that we get from overseas are breaking down, we kind of have to absorb that because we're the front men of the installation industry. So it's kind of a little bit of a hit that we have to take, but you have to compensate that by charging properly and understanding that you're going to have to put all this into your pricing. And it's not gouging the customer, it's watching our back and then also making sure the customer is taken care of down the road. So it's not easy to be let me take that back. I was going to say it's not easy to be a plumber today, because I picture my grandfather hiking 10-footer lengths of 4-inch cast iron upstairs. And now we have PVC, which is, I mean, I would say plumbers are on the spoiled end today, because we look at these houses that went up in the 40s and 50s, like even in River Edge, these cast iron sewers. I can't imagine. I mean, were there even a Sawzall back then? How do they cut pipe back then?
Snap cutters.
Snap cutters? Yeah.
Snap cutters or an angle. Did they have grinders then?
Was there electricity? Back in the...
Was there electricity? Yes, they had the light bulb.
I look at some of these houses and I'm looking at this plumbing, like, because a lot of tools for plumbing are fairly new.
Yeah, I think most things had to run off of gas or were hand, I mean, sweating, melting lead and oakum and all that stuff. And no, not for me. I would have never done it. I would have never become a plumber.
They made a lot of money
I
back then.
I know. I mean, I would have stick to being a mechanic, an auto mechanic or something like that, because
no one wanted to be a plumber. No one wants to be a plumber today, though.
Yeah, no one wants to work today.
Well,
that's a different story. Nobody doesn't.
You're right.
Want to
No one wants to do it. Everyone wants to be a TikTok influencer, and that's it.
Everyone, it's yeah. Listen, we're living in a time where it's easy to make a lot of money very quickly, and when you make fast money, I mean, you hear it all the time. When you make fast money, you don't know how to handle it. So you see young people make tons and tons of money, and then a lot of people lose it quickly because they don't know how to handle it.
And then it's gone.
And
that's like lottery winners. You ever read articles about that? People who win the lottery,
they all go broke.
They're in within a year.
I don't understand that either. I don't know how you make millions of dollars and then immediately go broke
within a year.
Yeah,
that's the average time that a lottery winner will lose all his winnings.
Yeah,
a year.
People need to work. That's why. I mean, it goes back to us with the schooling and with college, like universities, 4-year universities. I mean, I think you appreciate. I have nothing wrong with. I do have something wrong with universities, but I don't have anything wrong with like people who want to get a higher education. Like my brother. My brother went to medical school, and he's somebody who needs. Who was supposed to go to school. He could never do this. His hands are like your father's. They could never get scraped or scratched,
I can't imagine my father or your brother doing this.
Yeah, it's
even though I know my dad has done this, like so when my uncle had the contracting company, My dad did work for him for a little bit. He actually broke his leg in 2 places once. He fell into a pit. I remember that.
Didn't you fall through a ceiling too?
I fell through a ceiling of my first 6 months here. My first 6 months, my uncle took me on, and my gift to him for coming on was falling through a ceiling and a $20,000 workman's comp bill.
Jesus.
But I can't imagine. There's some people that are meant for college, and college is meant for certain industries, but there's a lot of kids out there being pressured to go to college when they should be getting into the trades. Like, they have the mindset, they have the mentality, they're super hyperactive. If you take a hyperactive kid and put him on a job site all day, that kid will not be hyperactive anymore.
Well, mixed in with all of that, when I say people need to work, they don't even need to work in the trades, in my opinion. I mean, I think it's a great field and a great industry, and I think you can make a lot of money, and I think it breeds a little bit of humility in people. But
working for the trades,
working in the trades. But I think you need to,
because you end the day stinking.
Exactly, you end the day and you felt like, wow, I worked for what I make. But I think people just need to work, even if like kids, they need to work at, pizza places or landscaping companies. And like we see all these help wanted signs everywhere and nobody's working. And these jobs these companies are struggling to find work. Mm-hmm. And
I remember growing up, and I'm 41 years old. When I was growing up and I was in high school, everybody had an after school and summer job. Everybody went to work. No kids have after school jobs anymore. They don't have summer jobs. They're not entering the workforce at 14. Like, when you turned 14, when I was growing up, everyone got their working papers. Like, oh, I can get a job. Like, I can have money. I can go to the mall. I can buy stuff.
Oh, you got working papers?
You had to go get working papers.
I didn't.
No?
No, I always worked for my father a little bit. But
well, that's why.
Yeah, but when I was 15, I got my first job outside of my family, where I worked at Dunkin' Donuts.
In Paramus?
No, in Glen Rock.
In Glen Rock?
By where I
At 15?
At 15. I worked there for...
And you didn't need to get working papers?
No. Because you know why? Because my father's friend was a franchiser for Dunkin' Donuts and 7-Elevens and all those places, and
that's why you always have to know somebody.
You do. Yeah, listen, it's about who you know too. It is. But I wanted to work. I wanted money to spend when I went out with my friends and everything. But going back to what I was saying, it's just you just need to work. When you work, instead of going to university at 18 to send a kid to school where he doesn't even know, you don't even need to go to school for the trades. But when at 18 years old, when you're done with high school, you have no idea what you want to do. You've been told what to do your entire life, okay? And now all of a sudden they just give you this freedom and they say, okay, now you can kind of do whatever you want. And you don't know what to do with it. That's why you pick something. And then people, what do they do for the first 2 years of school? They party and they drink and they do extreme things that eventually at the end of the day they regret. And then they're still lost at the end of those 2 years. So that's why I think you need to work. And when you work, you find out the things that you like and the things that you don't like, or the things that you're interested in and the things that you're not interested in. And that's what guides you towards your path. And if at the end of the day, after a couple of years, a few years, you're like, you know what, listen, I think school might be the thing for me. University might be the thing for me. So then go do that and maybe pay your way. But I still think most people should end up working and not going to university, especially out of school.
Right away.
High school, yeah.
But I agree with that. But your brother always wanted to be a doctor or some kind of in the medical field.
Yeah, he always wanted to be in the medical field.
Some people just
around in the medical field. Of course, some people are meant for it. Just like the same way some people are meant for the trade. Some people are meant to be mechanics. Some people are meant to, do their thing. But
I mean, you can kind of narrow it down. I do agree with what you're saying, because when I went to college for a year and a half, I failed out. I mean, it was a horrible mistake. And I went and I picked computer programming. Like, I don't even know. I had no idea what to do, but I had to pick a major.
I can see it now a little bit with the way you are with computers, but continue.
No. I hate computers. I like playing with apps and video apps, but programming, learning code, absolutely, that is not me. But I went to college a year after I graduated, And they're like, you have to pick a major. You have to pick a major. I was like, all right, well, what do you make money with? Computers. Let me do computers. Hated it. First semester, completely abandoned it. Then I wanted to be a teacher and
history, right?
History teacher. Yeah. History or English teacher I wanted to teach. And that just didn't work because I wasn't ready for college. I wasn't ready. I shouldn't have gone to college. But all of society is you got to go to college. When you graduate, you got to go to college, go to college, go to college, pick a major. And I remember like 60% of the kids I was in college with shouldn't have been there.
Yeah.
And they suffer through a degree, and then they graduate, and half those kids don't even work in the field that they went to school for.
Yep, they're in debt up to their neck.
But here's the other problem. And here's the conundrum of this, because the trades is still looked down upon. Yeah. Like when you talk to these kids who are in middle school, or we're supposed to actually next year get involved in like job fairs, go into local schools to set up a booth and encourage kids to get into the trades. We'll get looks by these kids like, oh, I'm not doing plumbing.
I can get all the looks I want. I don't care, because when your house is flooding, who are you going to call?
Yeah. Or when the whole world is shut down because of COVID and no one can work.
Yeah.
Who's still driving around working?
Who is twice as busy.
You know, do you remember when COVID hit and we were still driving around? How empty.
Yeah, it was nice.
When you pulled onto Route 417, like you made this turn and you're like, holy cow.
This is how it was meant to be.
The Walking Dead. Empty. That was insane.
Like when your father moved to Jersey in
Ohio.
Nah, your grandfather, sorry. Oh. When your grandfather moved over here to River Edge in the 60s, it was probably dead compared to the 60s.
Do you ever remember the Fireplace on 17?
Yeah.
You know all the old pictures in the Fireplace? They have pictures, because the Fireplace has been there forever.
It's just closed down.
I know.
They're selling bricks, monogrammed bricks.
Of the building?
Of the building.
Oh, shoot. I worked there.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone in this area worked there.
That's where you met my sister.
Yep. That's right.
And that's how I got here.
Holy cow. I didn't even think about the turn of events that started all that. At the Fireplace, that's how I met. That's how we're here today. But I totally forgot what I was going to say.
Fireplace.
Oh, yeah. So the Fireplace they had all these old displays of Bergen County back then. And there's this picture that I'll never forget where Route 4 and 17 cross, where the frickin' Garden State Plaza is right now. And it's an aerial shot. It's nothing but trees. It's a 2-lane road, two-lane roads that cross each other with a stop sign in the middle.
Before it became the Butterfly Highway.
Yeah. And just trees and farmland. And then you're maybe too young to remember this, but before the plaza went up, there was this old store called Alexander's. And it was not like, I'm trying to go back. I'm trying to remember exactly what it was. I think it was just one department store, or maybe a handful, but it was abandoned forever. And Paramus, I guess, that area was kind of dying out. And then they did the whole butterfly thing and put the plaza in. Now it's just booming. Yeah. But when he came from Jersey City to here, it was the country at that point. Yep. It was the countryside. And now look at it. Yeah. Now you have to drive an hour and a half out to see the country.
It's one of the most congested areas now.
It's insane. I mean, it's a huge difference from what it was. And I mean, imagine trying to ride around trying to find plumbing parts back then, driving through McDonald's farm.
We don't want to move. We don't want to move out of this area because we don't want to drive more than 10, 15 minutes to a supply house.
I know. That's the, like...
And we have, 5 within 15, 20 minutes? 5
miles?
Yeah.
So we go, everywhere you go, there's a supply house or a Home Depot or a hardware store. I got to sit down at a map and figure out what our radius is, but it can't be more than 5 miles.
Yeah.
If we're being honest.
It's nice. It's nice because it
still takes you a half hour to go those 5 miles, though.
Yeah, that's true. But if you're ever in a pinch, everything is fairly close, which is why you can get away with, I guess, not super stocking trucks like guys out in the West, in the Midwest, who they need these massive trucks to super stock.
Yeah.
So that they don't have to, if they forget one piece, they got to drive an hour away
You know,
a supply house.
So my brother was doing plumbing. Remember? Well, of course you remember. My brother came out.
Do I remember? Are you kidding?
Oh, my brother lives out in Ohio.
Kid's massive, by the way.
Yeah, he's 4 years younger than me, 150 pounds heavier, and 4 inches taller. Huge.
Linebacker.
Yeah.
Kid's a linebacker.
Gentle giant, though. So, just to get off track. So, when he was in high school, he used to bully the bullies. So the kids who used to pick on other kids, he would pick on those kids. So, and the principal once wrote a letter to my mom thanking her for him standing up for like the bullied kids. But anyway, huge kid, heart of gold, gentle giant.
Yeah, he is the nicest guy.
We can't work together though.
No.
We tried it. He came out here. I thought like when I took over the business, I'm like, you know what? Let me
keep it all in the family.
Keep it all in the family. Let's get Dave out here, get him in a truck. It just didn't work. But he ended up doing plumbing in Ohio, which seemed like a stab in the back, but whatever. But they'll do what? 1 or 2 jobs, maybe 3 a day, and you'll have 3 hours of actual working time and 5 hours of drive time and no suppliers. So you have to pre-order all your parts, stock the hell out of your shop, make sure that's fully stocked, and then get your truck stocked and make sure you don't forget anything during the day or you're screwed because you can't find anything except cows. So,
or those dinky little supply houses that
carry nothing.
They carry nothing. I mean, we went just out in West Jersey. I remember when we went, we did some work out in West Jersey, and we found a local supply place. And
actually, he wasn't too bad.
He wasn't.
He had all this crazy stuff.
He had all of this really random stuff that you won't find by us. The really like old and random stuff that you won't find by us. But as far as like general material, like everything copper wise, it was
a whack job.
Yeah, he was. It was old. The place was old. He was old. He looked like he was just tired.
Yeah, and he was the only one there.
Yeah. It's
expensive to keep stock. It really is expensive.
Well, you're a supply house. Your job is to keep stock.
I'm saying for us, but yeah, if you're a supply house, that is a hit you're going to have to take. That you do have to stock. But like for us, or the company my brother's working for in Ohio, it's pricey to do that.
Yeah.
Like you have to shell out a lot of money to hold that stock. And it just sits there. It's just money sitting on shelves that's not making money for you until you pick it up and go out and use it. That's why we're lucky where we don't have to keep massive stock. Even though that's a goal of mine, we don't have to do that because everything's local.
Yeah.
So it's night and day. Night and day. I mean, there's so many perks to this area. There are cons, but there's so many perks to this area. And this is where the money is, and it's expensive to live here. So when we go to a house and they're expecting to pay Ohio prices, it's just not going to happen because I'm sorry, I need to live in this area too. Like, what am I going to commute from Western Pennsylvania every day?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I guess I'm hoping you guys are kind of getting the point of why we're doing this podcast, but that's basically the goal. We want to sit down, talk about our day, run through certain things that we find in the field.
This is our therapy. This is how we vent.
Yeah, exactly. And pretty soon we'll probably introduce a liquor for each episode. We'll sip on a glass of liquor on the rocks.
Drunk plum bums.
Drunk plum bums. Oh man, that could be bad, or it could be really fun and enjoyable. But
hey, we built that bathroom. We built your shower while we were drunk.
Oh my gosh, that's right.
That was wild.
What were we drinking? We were drinking
Monster and whiskey.
And we went through what, like 8 monsters? I was tweaking.
Yeah, so was I.
I was tweaking, and I've never. I think I blacked out fully awake.
Yeah.
You're probably too young for this too. You remember Four Loko?
Yes,
I do.
The
real Four Loko.
Yes, I do.
It was
at the end of its life. Was at the beginning of my drinking life.
I remember Four Loko came out on the shelves, and then like millions of people died from it, and they took it off. But it was like, but the shower's still running and standing right now.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Hey, maybe that's the trick to being a good plumber.
Maybe we're amazing. Maybe we're amazing.
But so here's episode 1 of Plum Bums. And I hope you guys stick with us on this podcast because we're going to talk about a lot of cool stuff. And you're going to learn as we learn because, like I said before, we're no experts. We're really not. Trial and error with a couple bits of advice from people we know and respect. So thanks for listening, guys. Have a good one.